But yeah, I was baptized, surrounded by Jehovah's people, building places of worship for him, doing everything I was supposed to. And I felt empty. In a room full of people I knew since birth, I felt alone. At conventions, I felt alone. At memorials, I felt alone. In service, I felt alone. The people around me didn't truly know me. I didn't truly know me yet. And if I were to be my authentic self and try to learn who that is, I would become further ostracized and potentially shunned. I started realizing that the only reason I'd gotten baptized was because I thought it would help me to make friends and be more included and all. I thought it was what I was supposed to do. It was the only option that I had. And it did nothing but make me feel worse. I felt trapped. I felt like I was always just on the edge about to snap. I continued to have that deep feeling in my chest, you know, the wanting to scream. And couldn't. A friend of mine a few years ago said, "You just seem like you're always this close to exploding." And he was right. And this was like a year after leaving the organization, and I was still so pent up from it. He could see that, and he hadn't even been around me face to face that much at the time. And he could see it. I don't know who else, if that was just him, but I don't know. But anyway, after realizing that getting baptized wasn't what I truly wanted, I was on autopilot again. Because I was stuck. You know, I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I had to, you know, stay doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I think it was about a year after getting baptized, sometime in 2013, something happened involving an elderly brother who my family had helped for years. We'll call him Carl. We took him to get groceries, picked him up for meetings, took him home, picked up his dry cleaning, filled up his water jugs, took him to conventions. I think it was close to about like 10 years we had been doing this, because I was still in elementary school when we first started. But because of a false accusation he made against my mom, she ended up in jail for fraud because she had used his credit card to pay for his groceries. But technically that's illegal since her name wasn't on the card, even though he handed her the card to swipe because he was so blind he couldn't see to do it himself. The detective on the case even said he knew it was bullshit, but legally his hands were tied, and the store it happened at didn't want to be liable for allowing a technically fraudulent charge, so they were no help. And long story short, nobody else helped either. Like, none of the elders did anything about it, even though they knew my mom was innocent. They kept trying to band-aid their way through the situation like usual because they didn't want to disfellowship Carl, because they knew he would absolutely turn right around and sue the congregation. And the Jehovah's Witness organization reputation and funds were obviously the more important thing here. Nora, hey, stop. my mom lost her job because of that. Couldn't get another one because she then had fraud on her record. Had to pay court fees, do community service, and was on parole. All because that bastard got mad that she had called Adult Protective Services because he had gotten to the point of total blindness and was incapable of living on his own anymore. We were already a poor family, and now hundreds of dollars was going to fees every month. There were several times our water or electricity would get cut off for late payment. And she had literally like saved his life 3 times before due to him going into like diabetic comas and her finding him passed out in his house, which is a big reason why she called APS in the first place. But yeah, my mom was practically being shunned in the congregation because all they knew was that she had been arrested, apart from the few that were closer to us and knew the actual situation. And Carl was spreading false information about it on top of that. And the elders were letting other brothers and sisters still give Carl rides and help him with groceries, allowing him to spread this disinformation. He sued another brother because he claimed that brother handled him too roughly when he'd fallen out of bed and needed help to get up. And the elders were allowing him to not only stay in the congregation, but were also putting other people in danger of also being sued over whatever he may come up with next. He even accused me of stealing some, like, candle holders or something. Like, what am I gonna do with candle holders? We never got any actual assistance from the elders or any of the other brothers and sisters. Not the branch. Nobody gave a shit. Very, very big crack there. And that's the point I had started fading. Not realizing that's what I was really doing. I just didn't want to go back. In 2015, I went to my first Comic-Con with Lorna, Fan Expo Dallas. Yeah. It was something I'd wanted to do for years, and I cosplayed like the nerd I am. It was awesome. I still think back on it, and it was a great time. It was the first time I'd ever gone on a trip without family, and in a convention full of strangers who were weirdos like me, I felt more at home than I ever did in any Kingdom Hall or convention or assembly or memorial, service group, whatever. I still had major anxiety though because I had never been away from my family before. I'd never been on a worldly trip before, and for the first time I was staying in a hotel room with 2 men. And that was a huge deal because, even though, I mean, there wasn't anything going on, you know. And one of them was gay anyway, but I couldn't decide whether or not that was a good or bad thing in Jehovah's eyes because he wouldn't be interested in me, but also, JWs believe being gay is practically as bad as murder, which I never really went that far down the rabbit hole on that subject, but I felt guilty. Like a kid who snuck into the kitchen late at night and got into the jar of cookies that they weren't supposed to. And I had just turned 21. 21 years old, and I was afraid of getting in trouble because I was in a hotel room with men who weren't even interested in me, and vice versa. and I was doing worldly things like cosplaying and enjoying Comic-Con related things. But it was an experience that I honestly needed. It woke me up a little bit more, a lot more, and since then I've been to about 15 other comic and anime conventions, even won a couple awards for my cosplays, so, I mean, I'd say it was a good life experience. It set me on a better path. I also started working at Chick-Fil-A in 2015 with my mom. That was the only job she could get, was food service. I just went along because I needed to make money, and it was convenient for us to work at the same place anyway, considering I was the only one with a vehicle that we could rely on not to break down. And I gotta do a whole other video on how Chick-fil-A is extremely cultish also, but yeah, I mean, it paid the bills at least. But the reason I brought it up is because about 3 years into working there, I had completely stopped going to meetings and stuff. Pretty much just completely faded out. And every now and then I'd see some of the brothers and sisters come in for lunch or whatever, you know. Sue came in several times and always would say, "Hi, you look so beautiful today." Like a broken record. And there I was, sweaty, hair a mess, probably covered in ketchup, and all from working, and it just felt so fake. I'd heard that tone and cookie cutter words all my life from sisters growing up. I remember one time one of them told me I looked like I lost weight when I'd actually been gaining, and I told her that, and then we just stood there awkwardly. I couldn't stand the fakeness anymore, and that was also something I was having to deal with from coworkers too, so it was just intensified. Others would come in and they knew I was no longer going to meetings and stuff, and would literally just ignore me. And my job was in the dining room, like cleaning tables and sweeping and restocking the condiments, so it wasn't like I was back somewhere they couldn't see or interact with me. And it's not like they just walked in not knowing that's where I was working, because despite the fact I'd been transferred to a different location across town at that time, others that had been coming in before knew me and my mom worked there, so yeah. Hi. What are you doing? Come here. Okay. An elder who I used to joke around with didn't even say thank you when I brought him his food. A sister who I'd spent the night at her house during my first Kingdom Hall build, considered her a friend, wouldn't look at me. I was being shunned while at work. Like my job wasn't shitty and stressful enough. There was one sister who would come in every now and then, and I had grown up with her and been on good terms with her. She was a few years younger than me and worked across the street. She was the only one that treated me like an equal and never gave me the fake one-liners. She was always genuine. Someone that I could actually have a legitimate conversation with. And she's one of the very few that I miss. And while dealing with that, I became so sensitive to feeling shunned and abandoned. I nearly lost a couple of very dear friends over it. Brandon and his wife. And I didn't realize that until like fairly recently, as I've been deprogramming and all, but because at the time, unbeknownst to me, they were dealing with a lot of things. Even though I worked with Brandon, I hadn't had much contact with him other than work-related stuff and giving him a ride home. And maybe it was the whole Jehovah's Witness persecution complex coming into play, along with my exasperated feelings of being shunned, but I felt like they had abandoned me and that I was just being used to give him a ride home. It got in my head really badly to the point that I just completely shut down. At that point in time, I still had no idea or had no clue how to understand what I was feeling and why. So I didn't even know how to regulate and work through it either. It got to the point that I, without realizing, started shunning Brandon at work, just like a reflex reaction. So it ended up in a very bad argument between me, him, and his wife. Things were said on both sides that shouldn't have been said and all, so it blowing up wasn't entirely my fault, but still, had I not had that ingrained persecution complex and dealing with the feelings of being shunned, I may have had the sense to know that wasn't what they were doing to me. I wouldn't have had that reflex reaction of they stopped talking to me, so they must not like me anymore. Which is something I still struggle with a lot. So I end up needing a lot of reassurance. And then I feel like I'm being annoying, and then, yeah, just round and round and round. Indoctrination doesn't just poof, go away once leaving a high control organization. Did you know that when you're isolated and shunned, your brain reacts to it as if it's actually physical pain? Your amygdala shrinks from continued stress. All of the isolation, the not being able to make friends and constantly feeling like an outcast, the shunning was literally physically altering my brain. Shunning is literal torture. Thinking that as long as you stop interacting with someone, they'll come back to the truth, or back to where you think they should be. Or when they do, they are quite literally love-bombed upon returning. Does that not sound manipulative? That's called, among many other things, conditional love. So yeah, not only was I having to deal with a high-stress job, I was having to deal with that. And it was about to get worse. Because if I no longer believed in the truth, what do I believe? If I no longer had the hope of resurrection and paradise to look forward to, then what was the point of the first 20 plus years of my life? What do I do with my temporary time here when 2 decades have already been wasted? If I'm not one of Jehovah's Witnesses, then who am I? Where do I go from here? I didn't know, and that scared me. And what also scared me was having to come face to face with my own mortality. For those that don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses basically believe that they're gonna live forever on a paradise earth and never grow old. After, you know, Armageddon comes and all the bad people are killed off, and, you know, they get to be the ones saved because they're special and all, you know. But, at this point I still kind of believed in it, but I just couldn't be around those people anymore. The hypocrisy and the favoritism and the fakeness, I couldn't do it anymore. So I always felt like I had this doomsday clock over my head. I was constantly afraid that within the next 5 minutes Armageddon would start, and I knew I wouldn't survive it. I was going to die. And then I realized, whether or not I believe it, I'm going to die anyway because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. I realized I'd rather die than be in a world where I have to live with the people who make me feel worthless if I do one thing outside of their interpretation of Bible standards, who make me feel empty inside, whose beliefs and practices resulted in me wanting to kill myself. I'd rather die knowing I lived a life that I truly enjoyed, that I got to have the experiences I wanted, and was surrounded by people who truly filled my heart with joy and want to be around me. And once I realized that, I knew there was no going back. Unlike a lot of ex-J-dubs I've seen on here, I didn't have to worry about losing my family and all, or my friends by leaving the organization, because I was pretty much the last one holding on so tightly, and I had people to fall back on, you know, like Lorna and all. So I was fortunate in that, honestly. Not many ex-JWs are. But I had to realize that the first 20 plus years of my life were gone. And the times I would have spent with extended family who weren't in the truth, just gone. In 2019, we had a Thanksgiving kind of dinner with our extended family. You know, my grandparents on, you know, my mom's side and all that. We don't talk to the other side. We don't talk about Bruno. But yeah, my grandparents, aunts and uncles and cousins. It was the first big dinner we'd had as a family like that. And then May 2021, my grandfather suddenly died from a massive heart attack that no one expected. And I'm still bitter because I didn't get to have the memories I should have had with him. I didn't get to have all of the experiences I should have had with him, like my cousins did. The birthdays and the holidays that so many take for granted. I'll never have those memories. And I was robbed of that. My childhood, my adolescence, and developmental years were stolen from me. It was the first death of a close loved one I had to face, and it wrecked me. And my brother too. not only was I struggling with my own mortality, I'm struggling with the mortality of people I love. Before I thought, oh, you know, if my parents or grandparents or whoever die before Armageddon, then at least I'll get to see them again in paradise and live with them. And now I know that I won't. I've been deprogramming for several years now. It's taken me a long time because of the work environment I was in at Chick-Fil-A. It was very high control also, and that was a super high energy job too, so I honestly didn't even have a lot of time for myself. A lot of the things I'd realized about myself and about how I was raised, the indoctrination, were things I'd figured out while sweeping the parking lot by myself. I quit that job in 2020 for a lot of reasons. And since COVID happened and I've been staying at home mostly, it's given me more time to myself. Time to process everything, figure things out. I started art school in 2020 for game design and then ended up dropping out early 2022 because my mental health was just an absolute dumpster fire. A few years ago, I finally went to the doctor and they gave me, you know, their little questionnaire thingy. Their threshold for being diagnosed with depression is a 6. I scored a 13. I'd known I was depressed, but I'd lived with it for so long that it was just normal to me. So for me to score a 13 and think that's normal depression still boggles my mind. What is normal supposed to be like? So I am now diagnosed with major depression disorder and disorder with excessive anxiety and worrying about everyday life events, according to my chart. I'm on 2 different antidepressants, one at max dose. I probably should go to therapy, but I can't afford that, so I guess YouTube will be my therapy. I survived being a Jehovah's Witness and all I got was anxiety and depression. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. But yeah, the last quote-unquote gathering I went to was the memorial of 2020, and the only reason I remember is because we obviously had to do it by Zoom, and that was very unique, so it sticks out in my head, you know, having to use our own bread and wine, and that was definitely unexpected. But also I really didn't want to go, by which I mean to the living room to watch on the laptop, but my parents were adamant, because no matter what, you just can't miss the memorial, even. What are you doing? You can't miss the memorial because that's like the most important thing for Jehovah's Witness, honestly. And I mean, we hadn't even been going to meetings at all anymore, even before COVID hit, but you know, you have to make the memorial. And I still had anxiety about telling them no, so I literally just sat on the couch scrolling on my phone, pretending to be looking up Bible verses. I don't remember when the last, like, regular Kingdom Hall meeting I went to was, I don't know, I just remember the feeling of leaving the Kingdom Hall knowing I was never going to step foot in that building ever again. My brother is also done with the organization, but he was never baptized, so there's that. And I'll probably get him to tell his story, his side of the story too, because I mean, you know, it's similar growing up, but his circumstances are obviously different than mine. And it's interesting how things like that can play about. But my dad still believes in the truth, but he also has dementia and is very sick from nearly dying from COVID December 2020. He doesn't remember a lot of the last like 10 to 20 years, and he also doesn't remember a lot of certain events that happened, and will get confused about details of events, like when they happened, and not remembering things, you know, just dementia. My mom, I'm not sure if she still believes it. I honestly don't know if she does or not at all, like to what extent of either side. But after what she had gone through with Carl and all, you know, she doesn't want to go back to the Kingdom Hall either, so, and I don't blame her. But this has and still is this has been and is still a touchy subject in my family, and quite literally only recently, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, my brother and I actually came out and told our dad that we didn't believe it anymore, and how it had damaged us, because, you know, he ended up just as messed up as me, just in like kind of different ways. Like it affected him differently than it affected me, because our personalities are just opposite. But yeah, money that we used to go to conventions each year, or that we had donated to the Kingdom Hall, could have gone towards to being around family more, or fixing our quite literally rotting house. And it's been falling apart since I was a child. Do you want up on the bed? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, Laurel. Come here. Let me help you. Okay, you got it. You did it all by yourself. Good job. Good job. Okay. But yeah, we had an elder tell us several times that he would get some brothers together and they would come help us fix certain areas of our house that were falling in. And since my dad obviously couldn't do the work on his own because of his disability, it never happened. But, you know, I understand, because, you know, that elder was too busy building the new add-on to his house that he didn't even need, so, you know. But yeah, that money could have been put towards things that would have set me and my brother up for a more sustainable life. And you know, just conventions and all were quite literally like our vacation. And like, if we were lucky, we could go to the zoo when we went to the convention. Like, if we could go a day early and pay an extra night for a hotel and go to the zoo, that was like extra awesome. But no, like, going to the circuit assembly and the district conventions were our vacations. Yay. Staying inside a building and sitting for 8 hours listening to men drone on and on and on. Sounds like a great vacation. Especially if you want to take a nap. Those are like the best times to take a nap. Believing you're gonna live forever means you put things off. Oh, I'd really like to learn this skill, but I need to focus on preaching, so I'll get to that later on in paradise when I'm like 467 years old, give or take. And now here I am, about to be 29, not knowing how to do anything. I struggle with not knowing what to do with my life now that I know I'm only here temporarily. I still get anxiety knowing I'm actually going to grow old, because I'd always been told and believed I would be in paradise soon. So I thought I'd never even have to age. I feel like I'm behind in my life so much that there are still times when I get angry about it. I should be able to live on my own by now. Maybe have a partner. Maybe have already gone to Japan like I've always wanted. Be able to just basically... What's the word? It escaped me. Never mind. Yeah, I still struggle with making decisions without feeling I need permission. I have had to relearn how to treat other people on top of how to treat myself. I've had to learn how to be kinder to myself. That I'm allowed to be selfish. I'm allowed to feel negative emotions. I'm allowed to do what I want to do, be who I truly am. I gained a new appreciation for life. Knowing that things are temporary makes them far more precious. For a long time, I didn't even want to hear the word religion. If it got brought up, I'd automatically go into panic mode and shut down. But within like the past 6 months or so, I've finally been able to come to terms with it fully. I've finally been able to completely acknowledge that I grew up in a cult. And there's nothing I can do about it except what I can do now. And I had a lot of wonderful people who helped me through that. Some maybe unknowingly. I made other friends after turning 16 also that helped me with waking up. Lorna and Skylar and Brandon and his wife were a huge help in waking me up. Then I met Dalton, who also helped me quite a bit. He already had a ex-JW friend, so he knew a lot of what I was going through already and what my issues were before even I did. And he was able to help guide me through the process. John, because he's the one who told me about Telltale Atheist, which his videos helped me tremendously, and then his videos just were the gateway to other ex-JW videos, and then I went down a rabbit hole, and here I am. Every one of the friends I've made have helped me in different ways. They taught me what true love is, because they don't care about me just because a book tells them to do so, or because I'm behaving in a particular way. They care about me because they want to. They care about me enough to know what I like, what I don't like, and they still care about me even if we disagree on things. They know my dreams and goals and are willing to support me no matter what, even though I have royally fucked up with a few of them several times because of how I was programmed. That is love. That is my truth. Love that is based off of if you're doing what people think you should be doing, or based off of if you are part of the same mindset as them, is not love. That is manipulation and control. That is toxic and a recipe for disaster. I was being denied one of the most basic human needs: companionship. And now I have friends from all different kinds of backgrounds. I have Christian friends, atheist friends, pagan friends, gay friends, trans friends, polyamorous friends. All types of people that I was constantly being told were evil and sick. And yet all of these people have made me feel more loved and accepted than anyone in the Jehovah's Witness organization. And that's why I want to tell my story. Because if my experience is the one that helps someone wake up, then I can't stay silent. I was raised being told that if I didn't preach the truth, that meant I would be blood guilty when Armageddon comes, because I could have saved people. And staying silent would kill them, like, literally. So I'm going to do what I was taught and try to save as many people as I can from this organization that is quite literally stealing people's lives. I want to thank other ex-Jehovah's Witness YouTubers. After watching several of them, I finally had the courage to come out with this. I'd wanted to do so for a while, but to be honest, I didn't realize how many people were leaving now, and how many people were like looking for experiences like this. I'd avoided JW stuff for so long, and finally started watching stuff about six months ago. I don't know anymore. And now that I know how much of a need there is for people to talk about this, well, here I am. Send me. I don't necessarily blame my parents for raising me in the organization. Like I said earlier on in the video. And honestly, I have no clue where I would be now if I weren't raised as a Jehovah's Witness. It my life could have very easily turned out a lot worse. I mean, so essentially there are a few things I am grateful for in that sense. You know, there's always a little, at least a little bit of a silver lining. A little bit. So, what do I believe now? I'm not sure. I've never fully become atheist or anything. I ignored religion for a long time and focused on basically healing myself. And here recently I've had some interesting goings on, but I'm not going to get into it until I understand more about it and can confirm things. What are my plans now? Well, like I mentioned in the beginning, I am working on a graphic novel series. I started writing this story when I was about 11 years old. So yeah, this is the story I was working on during those sleepless nights and in the Kingdom Hall in my head and during conventions in my head. And after several revisions, I'm finally ready to start getting it out officially and build an audience for it. Ideally, I want to publish this series, do art prints and hopefully merch. I want to also continue building my art career and portfolio, so I have commissions open if anyone is interested. I'll have the link in the description to my website. I also do not safe for work art. So yeah, if you're interested. I Am Red Dragon is very dear to me. My friends can attest to that, because if they bring it up, I will not shut up about it until they make me. But it was my escape growing up, and it was a huge part of my healing process and my escape from Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't realize it at the time, but the plot and main character is based a lot off of my experiences as a Jehovah's Witness. It's about a young Japanese assassin who, after being injured, ends up in the care of a regular American family. It's a story about healing, becoming yourself, learning to love yourself, found family, allowing love into your heart, and trying to leave a high control organization. There is a lot of interesting character development, romance, supernatural twists, and action. So if anyone wants to follow my journey as I get this story out, feel free to follow me. I do have a written novel version that I am almost finished with, so there is that to look forward to also. Like I said, I'll be doing more EX-JW videos because this was only the tip of the iceberg, and I know this video is going to be over an hour long. I'm probably gonna have to cut it up into parts. But I will also be making videos concerning art and writing, as I have a lot of experience with those topics throughout my life. I wasn't sure if I should make a separate channel for, you know, art and writing versus EX-JW stuff, but I decided to keep it all on this channel because it's not separate to me. A lot of my art and writing is intertwined with being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and this is me. I'm a writer, storyteller, gamer, artist, and cosplayer. I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and now I'm officially an apostate, which feels weird to say. I'm TheOddFungi, creator of I Am Red Dragon. Call me Jay, fungi, fungus, shroom, odd, whatever. I use all pronouns, but tend to like more gender neutral ones a little more than others. I'm part of the alphabet mafia, as I am asexual and trans non-binary. If any of my family sees this, surprise! It's a non-binary being. I learned about my sexuality and gender when I was 22 to 23. I've known I was trans since I was a kid, just didn't understand what it was exactly or how to explain it. You know, you don't have access to that kind of information when you're in a high control organization, obviously. And that did contribute to my depression a lot also, especially after starting puberty. I definitely do want to go more in depth on my process of learning these things about me, as it definitely ties in with JW stuff, and hopefully help misinformed family members understand what trans actually means and not what the media portrays it as, so they don't continue to freak out if they find this. So yeah, I guess this is my, this is why we don't film at 1:30 in the morning. So yeah, I guess this is kind of my coming out too, since only a handful of my friends have known this about me, being as I'm literally the only and first LGBTQIA plus member in the family that I know of, at least. So it's something I've hidden for years. But fuck it. New year, new me, right? Just coming out with all of the stuff. I don't know how to end this exactly. Please like the video so the algorithm will show it to more people who may need it, and feel free to leave questions, comments, concerns. Tell me a joke. I don't know. If you don't, you'll get a foot fungus. Later.